Hello, friends and enemies, heroes and villains. Welcome to Epic Realms Presents Off the Pod. It's not a podcast, but it's sort of a podcast. At least that's the intro that we say on here. And I want to say thank you so much to Universal Death Squad, aka Cody, for the raid. Thank you so much, guys. Go and check out Universal Death Squad. They do a lot of Dead by Daylight and have such a fun little attitude. So go and hang out with Universal Death Squad if you enjoy yourself some Dead by Daylight and even some playing with community members. So thank you so much. My guest today on Off the Pod, he is the line developer for RPGs over at Samurai Sheepdog, Kevin Glusing. Welcome to Off the Pod. How are you?
Hey guys, I'm doing well, thank you, and thank you so much for having me again.
I think the last time we had you on, we did was it the GM's panel, the Game Masters Workshop? It's like the first
I believe
or
it was,
second
yeah.
one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was a while ago, and it was awesome. It's I oftentimes people still say, "Hey, I'm just starting role playing. What do you do?" And I go check out this show. It's on YouTube now. Every single episode, you got all kinds of amazing people on there from all walks of life that are long-standing role players and game masters, and that was a pretty good one. Lots of great insights from you and the other two guests. I can't remember who was on that one with us.
Yeah, you got me.
I don't remember who it was.
Sorry, I don't remember either right now.
Well, it will. And now I'm like, I've got to go look. Who was it? Here's my channel. You guys can go find at Epic Realms on YouTube, and you can watch it. Let's see here. Playlists. Game Masters Workshop. It was. Welcome to Epic Realms presents the Game Masters Workshop. We don't need to hit that one. That's the first one. I think it was the second one. There it was. Oh, it was you, Richard Lee Byers, and Andrew Valkoskis from Fate of the
That's
North.
right, Richard.
And
yep.
Yeah, Richard
okay.
Lee Byers,
I remember now.
Author. So yeah, it was a good episode. Here, I'll just do this. People want to see that episode. Got a lot of people in our community that role play or like to role play and stuff like that. So go and check it out. And of course, you are our earliest out of all the podcasts that we did when we first started off. Some of the videos didn't get saved, so I believe you are our first podcast episode as far as video goes. So when people go onto YouTube and they're like, let's check out the early renditions of Epic Realms as far as the podcast goes, and you're the first one on there. They're very earliest.
Oh, neat.
So
okay.
You survived. You survived all of the transfer and the nuke and the computer stuff and everything that happened. So
fair enough.
So guys, in chat today, feel free to talk with us however you want, whenever you want, about the subjects at hand. Alerts are on. We will be able to hear you. We'll be able to see you. All of that kind of stuff. Our first topic today, we're going to talk a little World of Warcraft. I hear Kevin does some World of Warcrafting and has been for a while. And so we're going to do a little bit of chatting on that. We're going to chat a little bit about some Pokemon. We're going to talk about developing RPGs and some of the work that he does as far as that goes, and just chat about it in general. And we're going to talk about running a Patreon and getting that set up and keeping it going and making sure it's accurate and whatever else we come across, whatever the topic seems to be. So feel free to ask your questions or put in your 10 cents and we'll get to the chats. If we don't get to your chat, don't worry. If we don't get to it while we're talking, we're going to, as soon as the timer runs out, we're going to catch up on chat. So we will get to whatever you have to say regardless. So that's that. Should we start the first topic?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
What I didn't tell you is when the timer goes off, it plays a nifty little song. So you'll hear it and you'll be like, what the hell is that song? What is that?
Awesome.
So how did you get into World of Warcraft? Because I got in after I quit EverQuest and everybody else was playing World of Warcraft.
So my introduction to World of Warcraft was a friend of mine at work at the time. We used to work at DirecTV, and he played since day one. He was like in the beta and all these things in vanilla World of Warcraft and stuff. And I thought it was interesting, but at the time I didn't actually really like those kinds of games. I didn't really know much about them, and I wasn't any good at them. Like WASD meant nothing to me. I was like, right. Give me a control pad and like the diamond and the triangle and the X and everything. Those I had those down. That was fine. But I very briefly played another game, City of Heroes, that was out at the time.
Yeah.
And yep. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I'm still not any good at it. The buttons are awful. Um, but I'll give, I decided to give World of Warcraft a try. And so for Christmas that year, as it so happened, I bought a couple of the World of Warcraft. The card game was out at the time.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and so my friend played, I played, and I was like really big into card games at the time, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, stuff like that. And so I bought him some trading cards, and I got one of the little special cards. It was a swimming turtle thing that you could scrape the code off of, and I gave it to him, and I was like, "Here, man, Merry Christmas. I don't play, so this is all yours." And he's like, "Are you serious? This is like a $400 card." I was like, "Really? Oh, okay." Um, but yeah, so I didn't care. I was like, "Yeah, man, here, go for it." And he still has it to this day. That he uses. But yeah, and he actually got me the copy of World of Warcraft in the pre-order for Burning Crusade because it was
Okay.
at that time right before the first expansion came out.
Yeah.
And I've been playing ever since, you know.
Do you ever take like lulls, take a lull off, and be like, I'm going to be done for 3 years and then come back, or has it been pretty steady?
It has been fairly consistent. I have taken breaks, not like years long. Usually it's like a patch or two at most. I think my longest break was during Mists of Pandaria. Right before Throne of Thunder came out, I took a break for a while and I came back right toward the end of the expansion just in time to actually get my legendary cloak. Because that was like the big item back in the day for
Yeah.
that particular expansion.
Were you doing Horde or Alliance?
Oh, primarily Horde from the beginning. Although in recent years I've expanded out more, particularly since Legion when they introduced all of the stuff for the different classes. I was like, well, if I'm going to experience everything in Legion, I have to have one of every class. So I might as well
Oh.
make some of those Alliance. And so then I did. And
Can you play?
yeah,
And I haven't played.
excuse me.
I haven't played since probably the third expansion. It's been
Mhm.
a while. It's been a while. I don't remember what it was. It was after Burning Crusade, and
Yeah.
I heard that they did stuff where you can play Ally and Horde can like team up to do stuff. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so toward the end of the most recent expansion before this one that's now active, they made it available for you to be able to party with your friends that you have on either faction. And you can work together in things like raids and constructed content that doesn't involve you going into queues and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I have friends who raid with us regularly, and the one of my friends in particular, he played a gnomish warlock in our raid for a while, and that was a lot of fun because he was like the only person that had an alliance tune in the raid at the time.
Okay. Nice. I did. Did you do much PvP at the end of my play? And I was doing a warlock, and I was doing mostly PvP stuff, just because some of the main story stuff just wasn't catching my eye, but the PvP seemed to be like I was pretty good at it. So I was like, well, this is fun because I'm good at it and I'm progressing, so I might as well keep doing it.
Well, that makes one of us. I am not great at I'm not great at PvP. I mean I've played it. I've played it enough to be able to get the occasional achievement. Like if there's an achievement that comes out that requires me to do some kind of PvP for the thing that I want, I'll go in and I'll put the effort in for a while.
Okay.
But like my main focus has always been really the world content and the raids and the dungeons and stuff. I've been raiding since I started playing in Burning Crusade. We raided Karazhan and got my attunement and everything, and all the way up through. I think the only raid I've ever missed was the brief two boss raid during Battle for Azeroth that they had for like 3 months until they came out with the Eternal Palace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot says only reason I liked Arena was the names of the teams. I don't remember the names of the
Oh
teams.
yeah, arena names. Those were always great.
I don't
Yeah.
remember. Do you remember any of them?
Oh goodness. I don't know. Is this a kid-friendly channel? Because they
Yeah, no,
usually
you're
weren't.
whatever. You can say whatever. Yeah,
Um,
it's on
no,
Warcraft, so it should be okay for kids, right? Right? Right?
yeah, yeah. there was a lot of stuff like I remember a three rogue comp like backdoor action and stuff like that. Um, they had a lot of just really crazy names and stuff. And like I mean it wasn't even just arenas. Like those were always fun to watch, getting the arena names and stuff like that. But like guild names are always fun, especially when people match them off with their characters. Um, some years back, I got lucky enough. I actually bought a guild off of somebody for like 200 gold, and it had like all 8 of the tabs that were available to it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was awesome at the time because that was back when it was actually kind of a big deal to have your own guild.
Yeah.
And I never really expanded it, so I never really actually had people in it except for myself. I've been using it as an alt guild for going on 12 years.
Uh.
But the guild name is Barbecue Sauce, and my guild leader is a Tauren paladin named Savory Sweet. So that's a lot of fun.
Does the guild name come? And again, it's been a while since I played. Does the guild name come on after the name or before the name?
It's usually after the name, so
Is
like
it
it'll say on there Savory Sweet, and then
barbecue
underneath it will say
sauce?
Barbecue Sauce. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's just pure joy right there.
Yeah, those were always fun. I actually, one of the most recent ones, I always love the pun names and stuff like that. Like, they just had a brand new meta achievement, right? So there's achievements that you have to do that you just complete little things, you get some points for. And then meta achievements, which is a collection of those into one thing for like a bigger reward. And this one that I just completed like 2 days ago, it's called, it's from the most recent expansion patch, and it's called The Forbidden, and it
Okay.
gives you the title, The Forbidden. So I renamed one of my tunes to I renamed him Touch. So he is now Touch the Forbidden. Yeah.
Not the forbidden touch, because that's something completely different that we probably don't
Oh,
want to talk about.
that would actually have been even better because when I told my wife about it, I was telling her, I was like, "Hey, check out what I did." And she was like, "Oh, the forbidden touch, that's awful." And I was like, "Well, unfortunately it's not that, it's this." She's all, "That's not much better."
No, it's not. It's not. Does she play?
She did for a while.
Yeah.
Unfortunately she kind of fell off after a bit. Kind of the story of my time playing World of Warcraft is I'd get people to come in for a while and play, and then they just kind of fall off after a while, and I keep going. But like my brother played for a while. He had a warlock that got the green fire quest whenever it was still current content. So he has like the whole really cool title and stuff like that. I missed it by one day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like the day after they took it away, I got credit for it. Um, and then I lost. There's a mount in the game called Invincible that you get from the fighting Arthas and Icecrown, and I've lost it twice now. Once to my brother and once to my son, both of whom don't play anymore. I
Can't they
still
just
don't let
log
them.
on and like transfer it over to you?
Oh, I wish, but no, unfortunately not. I still don't let them live that down though.
Oh man.
Every now and then they're like, "I think I'll play again," and I was like, "Oh, that'd be great because then you could get on that mount that you got from me."
Yeah, yeah. No, I'd do the same exact thing. I would do the same exact thing. Is there something that you like when you're playing the game, you go, I have this and this is fucking awesome. Is there something that like you're really proud of that you've completed or that you did that's like you could show off to people that play that would see it and go, oh my god, that's awesome?
Um, oh, well, as far as personal achievements go, yeah, I really actually am happy to have earned most of the ahead of the curve achievements since back in Warlords of Draenor. Um, when they kind of like, so they started them back in Mists of Pandaria, and I got them for the first group of raids that they had. And then I missed Throne of Thunder, obviously, and Siege of Orgrimmar I didn't get because I just wasn't raiding at that time. I was still doing other stuff. But yeah, I've got the ahead of the curve for pretty much every raid from there on, which I'm happy with. You know, it's heroic raiding for me is kind of the end game.
Yeah.
I don't do Mythic. I tried Mythic for a while back in the day and was just like, nah, it's a little too focused for me.
What is that achievement? What is it specifically?
Oh,
Like,
so ahead of the curve is when you complete the heroic raid that is current content
okay.
before the next raid comes out,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So if like the raid actually tomorrow is a brand new patch, comes out with a brand new raid,
Okay.
which actually the raid itself doesn't start until the following week, um, but I got the ahead of the curve for this raid that we're doing right now today. I had that a couple months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then tomorrow or whenever the next one comes out, you'll have to get that one done right away to
Right,
get the
then we'll
achievement. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, you usually have it's roughly 6-ish months.
Do they still have it
But I gotta
where pretty much a lot of the like if you're a warlock, pretty much everybody's like, this is the gear I'm gonna get no matter what I'm playing as a warlock? Or do they have it where
Um,
there's like a lot of different options to build and you can have different things and one warlock might be built one way and the other a different way, so their gear is going to be a bit different.
well, okay, so yes and no. The game itself is made in such a way that you should be able to kind of tailor yourself how you would like to do. If you want to do things like build a crit focused warlock or a haste focused warlock or whatever. But if you were to look online at like guides and stuff like that, everyone's like, nope, haste warlock is the best one. That's the one you got to be. So you kind of get pigeonholed that way in some, especially if you're doing things like Mythic Raid.
Yeah.
But if you're at our level, like Mythic, like heroic rating and lesser than that, usually it's not a huge deal, and you're not so focused on, oh, I have to run this dungeon to get this specific item to make sure that I'm the top 1%.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I remember that was a lot of the thing. It's like, I have this. Okay, well, that's the best. There isn't something like pseudo equivalent somewhere else. It was all, so every time I ran across whatever I was playing and they were on my same level, they had pretty much the same exact thing. Whereas, like, in some of the other games, whether it's DC Online
Hmm.
or Call of Heroes or City of Heroes or
Right.
EverQuest, it was like, well, I have this back piece, but this other guy has this one, and they're different, but they're still both really good. They're both viable. So
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because again I haven't played in a while, so I'm like, well, has that changed or
For the most part, it's not. It's mostly just the item level itself that is ultimately the decision maker
okay,
nowadays. Blizzard has done a decent job of making sure that, even though one cloak might have 250 mastery and one has 250 haste, you're usually okay taking either of them as long as it's an item upgrade.
okay,
And it's only when you get into that really nuanced, like, oh, I have to be the top PvP, I have to be the top raider, that's where you care which one is which.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool, cool. I've been debating getting back into World of Warcraft and just seeing where I stand compared to where it was, 10, 20 years ago. It's probably 20. It was like probably 2005, 2010
Okay.
ish. So,
Yeah, that sounds about right. You mentioned the third expansion. That would have been Wrath of the Lich King. So yeah, about roughly 20 years.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with Lich King was the last How many expansions have roughly how many have been out? A
Oh
lot.
goodness. So Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, uh, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, Battle for Azeroth, Shadowlands, Dragonflight. So there's been 8 since then.
Wow.
Yeah. 11 total. We're on patch 10.0, or 9 total expansions, patch 10.0. And yep. And then they're going on next year is going to be like the 2020 year
Okay.
anniversary for World of Warcraft. Maybe 25. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Wow.
But that's supposed to be like a huge deal because that's like a major milestone, and they're
Yeah.
hopefully planning something huge for it. So because that'll be new expansion years next year, so
Okay.
hopefully they'll have something massive.
Is there anything you want out of the expansion? Something that you're like, I really wish they do this.
Oh man, so many things. Um,
If you get to just pick one, there's one. They
if
they come to you and they say,
oh,
"What's the one thing you want? We'll put it in the game."
oof. I'm gonna get some hate for this. I would have to say some new class options for like uh character classes, right? So like a tanking shaman, or a healing mage, using time and stuff. Although they kind of did that with the evoker. Um, so the evoker's been a lot of fun. That's the new class that came out with this expansion.
Oh, okay.
And hopefully, if the rumors are true, we might be actually getting a new specialization with that class during this expansion. So that could be kind of cool.
Oh, okay. Neat.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely I have said forever, because I like tanking, but I never really get a chance to tank. I've always got somebody else in our group tanks. And but I've always said if they ever gave me a rogue tank or a shaman tank, I would never look back. I would just play that for the rest of my days in World of Warcraft.
What are you playing now? What's your
Right now I'm
what's your main?
playing. Yeah, right now my main is my evoker.
Okay.
That's the one I'm playing through this expansion primarily. But I do have. I looked it up before we started today. I've got 10 classes at max level right now out of
Wow.
13.
Wow.
Um, yeah. I don't have monk, shaman, or priest yet, but I'm working on those ones. And I really enjoy playing my paladin and my evoker right now. It's been a lot of fun.
I know I had we had R.A. Salvatore on, and he was talking. He's really into World of Warcraft. He loves playing World of Warcraft. And the
Nice.
second Warcraft or EverQuest came up, the entire show just shifted to talking about that. And yeah, he had. I think he's just like you. He's got a ton of characters that he plays, and he's like, yeah, this is my favorite right now, but that's gonna
Hmm.
change. Something else is gonna come out, and I'm gonna play that. So
Yeah, I actually I have to say I feel much the same. I mean, I've got what do I have? 48 total characters on my account, only 20 of which are less than level 60. I my goal, like I said back in Legion, so before Legion, my rogue was really my primary character. He's the one that I got literally everything on as far as achievements and stuff. And then when Legion came out and they were like, so in order to get the full experience of Legion, you can't play one class. You have to play every class because you have all these different class halls and all these different quests and mounts and pets and stuff like that that you get. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna play one of every class. And then I was like, I mean, every class has their own specializations, and every specialization has its own special item. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to make one of every specialization then. So there's like
right,
32 different class options in the game as far as like specializations and stuff. So I have 3 Death Knights, 3 Paladins, etc., etc.
Pixel Next says, with you liking rogues in World of Warcraft, do you also like that class in tabletop RPGs like D&D and other stuff, Pathfinder, etc.?
As it so happens, I do. I do love the rogue.
High
The rogue's
five,
always been
rogues, rogues, high five.
indeed, very much so. Um, Yeah, no, I've always enjoyed rogues. I like the different variability of rogues in Pathfinder and D&D. Like I can play a strong rogue this time, or I can play a thief rogue this time. Sometimes I'll play the smooth talker, whatever.
Right,
But
for sure. What has been like? What was the class that you've played the most overall? Like I know your evoker is the one now, but is there one that like from the beginning? Is it that the rogue or
yeah, so my outlaw rogue began as a combat rogue. They changed the name of the specialization when Legion came out. But he was combat rogue back in Burning Crusade all the way up. Funny enough, he wasn't my first character. He was my second character. My first character, I tried making a human mage, and this is coming from my D&D background and not knowing anything about RPGs and stuff. I started playing and I was like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to level him up with his staff skill, and he's going to be like a staff fighter who casts spells. And that would have been awesome because in D&D you could do that. I could be a
yeah,
staff fighter who
yeah.
has magic and cast spells. Yeah, that obviously for those who play World of Warcraft did not work out very well for me. Um, I went out in Stormwind in this little church area that you start in, and I was just beating on wolves with my staff, and they'd kill me repeatedly. And eventually, I ended up dying to the point where my gear was broken. I didn't have money to repair it. I literally couldn't do anything, and I was like, I'm gonna delete this character and start over. So then I made my rogue, and I never looked back.
Nice. That's great. Did you ever play any other MMOs?
Yeah, actually, so after I finally got used to the fact of playing MMOs like that, then I started trying them out a little bit more. I went back and tried EverQuest with my wife because she was a big EverQuest player back in the day. So we played that for a little bit. Tried out Final Fantasy 11 for a while. Um, went back to City of Heroes, played that for a little bit as well,
Yeah,
and DC Universe Online. Um,
I
let's
love
see what
DC
else.
Online. What did you play in
That's a good
DC
one.
Online?
I was playing yeah, so it was DC Universe Online back when it very first came out. And I it was when it was still pay to play.
It's the end of the time.
Nice. Just to finish that thought.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So DCU was pay to play at the time, so I paid for my months or whatever and got in, made my characters and stuff. I actually made a really cool superhero character with a staff. Oddly, I kept going back to that. Now that I think about it, but yeah, and I made him all green and purple. I named him Donatello, and he was my Ninja Turtle superhero character on that game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I love that one, but I get to a point if I don't play it for a while and I forget, then it's like I have to go back in and make a new character and relearn everything. And then by the time I get there, it's like, well, do I go play my character that I know how to play now because I remember, or do I keep playing this one that I just sunk a bunch of time into? And it's like that
Yeah.
for pretty much any MMO, so I'm sure that'll happen if I do go back to Warcraft.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Warcraft does thankfully a really cool thing with the sharing of things like achievements and stuff nowadays. I don't feel bad by not playing my rogue as much because all of the stuff that I've earned on him is available on my other
Oh,
characters.
that's nice.
Yeah, so
Nice.
that's really cool. Also, Pixel, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Pixel mentioned Hugs that they don't have that experience with WoW, but they've made plenty of useless characters in other games on accident. Yeah, that myself and I have as well.
Yeah,
So many.
it happens for sure. Or you get what I've had ones where it's like I make it and I'm really excited about it, and then something really bad happens, and then I get frustrated, and then I just never play it, and then I delete it.
Yeah, we just had a game we just had a game of Pathfinder actually that my niece ran for us, and I was playing this really cool hunter or ranger slash gunslinger, and I loved him. He was great. He was like a Wyatt Earp character, and he was like been my favorite character in a few years that I played, and it's been awesome. And he died. It was our last
No.
session. Yeah, before we switched games. He got eaten by a slime.
Oh
Actually,
no.
he was trying to save his friends because his friends were down, knocked low, and we'd already brought one of them back from almost the dead, and so I was like shoving them into the water, like, get away, I'll take care of this.
Right.
And then I basically just turned around and got hit once and died. I was like,
Oh
no, okay, well, so much
no.
for that. At least they got away.
Right. Luke says I had a mage horde side that I always thought I played better than any
Then their alliance mage,
than their
yeah.
alliance mage. I'm like, wait, I said something wrong in there. I boosted her and now she's unplayable. Wish I hadn't. Oh no.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I know that feeling though. Like you get those characters where you're like you do something like the boost and whatever, and then all of a sudden it's just this completely alien kind of feel to what it was.
What's a boost? What is that?
So the boost that they have available, you can get sometimes depending on what character options are available. So like right now, you can get a character boost that raises your character's level from any whatever it is currently to 60.
Okay.
So you could start at level 60 and then you play the current content, which goes from 60 to 70.
Oh.
Yeah, so it kind of gives you that's why they call it a boost, is because it gives you a leg up to start playing the new content instead of having to go back and play all the old stuff first.
Okay. Yeah, and that's probably what I would have to, because I think level cap was 30. I want to say.
Oh, for Wrath of the Lich King, it would have been 70.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yep.
maybe
They
I'll have
did.
to go back and recheck and look. Maybe I don't remember. It's been
I was
10
gonna say
years.
your character would probably be 35 now, because what they did was they did a level squish during the last expansion. They were up to 120, and then they knocked it all the way down to 160 or down to 60 again, and then now it's going up to 70.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. When and or if I log in. Oh no. Wrath of the Lich
Oh
King
yeah,
was
nope,
80.
you're right. Wrath of the Lich King was 80. My apologies. Yes, thank you.
No problem. Let's see here. Classic was 60, right? You got mounted at 30 and
Uh,
then up 70 by fives.
so you're half right. Technically, classic was 60. You got slow mounts at 40, and then at 60 you could get a fast mount for like 100 gold or something,
Right.
which was a crazy amount back in the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Now I have quests that give me 100 gold.
All right, the next conversation is Pokemon. We're going to talk a little bit about Pokemon.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton of, I know enough. Speaking of, there is a Pokemon that just spawned. A wild Lumineon has appeared. You guys can catch it. It's a tier B water type Pokemon. A netball will give you 70% chance to catch it. There's also a fish event going on, so you get triple chance at shiny Pokemon for the next 60 seconds. So go ahead and try.
Nice.
You can use an Ultra Ball and try and catch that. So what got you into Pokemon? Because when I first before you answer that, when I first got into Pokemon, not Pokemon, when Pokemon first kind of got out, I was in that. I'm part of the Magic the Gathering group, and we play Magic, and everybody who played Pokemon was the little kids. Like, oh, those little kids, they're just playing Pokemon. And now I look back, it's like, man, I should have played Pokemon with those little kids.
Yeah, right. No. So Pokemon came out right when I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
The card game, the trading card game.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
actual video game came out in like 95 in America. Um, but I started playing Red and Blue. That was my first games to play. Loved them. Have played every generation since. Got my children into them. Been to many tournaments, like virtual and actually in-person tournaments. Um, One of my first dates with my now wife was actually at the Pokemon 10th anniversary in Portland, Oregon.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and we went and I competed in the virtual championship and made top 8.
Wow.
I lost to a guy that ultimately he won that particular tournament, but like he like verbally confirmed to me and the judge while he was fighting me that he was like using Game Shark to level his characters and do stuff. And I was like, really, dude? It was like a big no-no. You don't use the cheating devices to go to like tournaments and stuff like that. So
So he cheated and they didn't boot him?
nope.
What
That
the heck?
that was that was just the way it was back in the day, and I was like, whatever, it's fine. I was cool with top 8, so
Yeah, yeah.
he ended up not even I'm pretty sure because so back when they did that, what happened was you had to actually send your game. If you won the tournament, you were required to send your game to them to check it before they allowed you into the tournament in New York.
Oh
And
wow.
he never made it. I never saw him on the stream that they had for New York, so I imagine he
Probably
got
because
booted.
yeah, he got
Yeah.
booted. Does it then go to like the number 2 guy or whatever?
I would imagine.
Gotcha.
Or they left the slot open for a wild card or something. I don't honestly know. It's been so long. They're on they just passed 25 years a
It's
couple
crazy.
years back now, so um yeah.
I think
Oh,
I
actually,
first go ahead.
I was going to say it should be easy for me to remember because we got married the next year. So if we're on 17 years now, so that would be almost 27 years of Pokemon.
Well, there you go.
So, yeah.
Yay, math and anniversaries to remind you of things.
Absolutely.
It's better that you use your anniversary to remember other things. Oh.
Yay!
Hello, Ronnie Mama. Welcome in. Thank you for playing the finger dancing song.
That's so cool.
Welcome on in. We're talking little Pokemon with Kevin Gleasing. So, my first introduction to Pokemon, like obviously that was my introduction to Pokemon, but when
Mhm.
Pokemon Go came out for the phone,
Yep.
I was all over. Somebody showed me. I was like, "This is super cool." I wanted to just. There's the. It's not AI, not augmented reality. There's the
Oh
augmented
yeah, yeah.
reality of it,
Mhm.
and I was like, "That's really kind of cool." And I thought to myself, "Man, this would be a great Ghostbusters game." And I say it all the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you
going,
know,
go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say, I agree with you. There's a lot of these games that I see a lot of them that have come out, and I'm like, that's really neat. Where are these ones? Like Ghostbusters would be really cool, you know? Oh, there's a ghost. You gotta zap it with your
Yeah,
gun, and yeah, But then we got Harry Potter.
right, right. Harry Potter was okay, and yeah, Pokemon. When the Pokemon Go craze happened, where there were like
Mhm.
people trying to like get on military bases to catch them, like that was the
Yes.
time. Because I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, so I live in the capital, and so we just go down there and just walk the streets, and it was crazy. And I know a lot of
Oh
people were
yeah.
like cheating and whatnot, but they were using VPNs to be like, I'm showing up over here and Santa Monica Boulevard, but
Hmm.
around here it was really great because we just go bing bing and up and down the street. It's like you could zigzag the street and catch all these amazing Pokemon, and I don't know what happened. It just kind of like everybody just one day. It felt like it was one day. Everybody just disappeared. Nobody was playing. Went from like 30 people, and you were like tripping over each other, and you'd see people rushing to the other side of the city to get to whatever, and
Hmm.
then literally you go out the next week and like, where is everyone?
Um, yeah, I don't know. In our area it tapered off a little bit more than that. But when it first came out, we actually were on vacation in New Hampshire with some family, and my cousins and my niece, they all knew how much I love Pokemon for years, and were like, "Are you gonna play this?" And I was like, "I've already got it downloaded. I'm just waiting for the servers to work." And they were like, "That's awesome!" And like I helped a bunch of them like use their phones to get signed up and logged in and add friends and stuff like that. Um, and it was just a lot of fun. And we played for a couple years before, like right up into COVID, basically.
Right.
And we stayed in touch. Like that was how me and a couple of us have actually stayed in touch since then, sending presents back and forth with each other and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Did you get a lot of walking in?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, we would go, actually, our whole family, when we played for a little bit there, we would go and just do there's a park near us, a big old park with a lake, and we'd just walk around it for, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Yep, hatching eggs, stopping and catching Pokemon. There'd be little like swarms of Pokemon that would show up and stuff during the special events and whatnot.
We do a lot of driving, or I do a lot of driving and doing deliveries and stuff. So there's
Mhm.
always this because it doesn't at first driving counted. They didn't know it, but then they figured they could figure out the speed limit and shut that off. But I would bring it with just so I could see and I could catch Pokemon when I stopped at places.
Mhm.
What I didn't know is anytime I dropped below like 5 miles an hour, so every time I had a stop or a start or I was going around a parking lot, it started
Yeah.
counting that.
Yes.
And I was
You,
like,
as long as you didn't go above like 8 miles an
yeah, and
hour,
I was
it would
like, as
count
long as
your.
I mean, I feel like I'm cheating, but at the same
Nah,
time,
that
I
was.
don't care because I'm working and I'm hatching all these eggs.
Yeah, for me it was the same thing like with the bicycle. I had to get used to not riding my bicycle so fast. Yeah, so real quick in chat though, I
Yeah,
wanted to go back to Pixel here. So just kind of working from the top, Pixel, your first question that you had for us, I've played all different iterations of Pokemon, be it video game, card game, or otherwise. And different variants of Pokemon, like the Pokemon card game video game. um but my favorite Pokemon, I do like Trubbish. Don't get me wrong, I do. My favorite Pokemon, though, I have three things that match for my favorite Pokemon, and for different reasons. My first of which is Gengar, because it was the first shiny Pokemon I ever captured,
nice.
which was awesome.
Is that a video
Tyranitar
game or a card?
in the video game.
Okay,
Yep. Uh, Also in the video in Tyranitar. And Tyranitar, because I captured one in one of the Nintendo 64 games, and I still have it today. It has
nice.
a very special ribbon that you get for purifying it in the game. And so that I've carried over through the generations since the Nintendo 64. Um, so that one's also a favorite of mine. And I actually have used that one in a few tournaments as well. And then my last one is Breloom, and that's just because I really love the design of that Pokemon. The fighting grass type
Yeah,
mushroom thing,
yeah.
it's always one of my favorites.
I like you. I like Tyranitar. I think he's my favorite like big hitter
Mhm.
character. Like a lot of people are like the Snorlax, at least for Pokemon Go, and other things. But I really like Tyranitar, and as soon as the game upgraded to the next thing, it's like, oh, is Tyranitar in the game? Because I knew that from before, and so I
Yeah,
really liked it. I also like Growlithe just because he's a super cool looking. A lot of my favorites are because they're cool looking. So
oh
like
yeah,
Growlithe, the it's not quite an Eevee, but it's still like this dog, cat, lion, bear type
sure,
stitch. So those are
the
probably my
legendary
two.
Pokemon.
So those are two probably my two favorites from that.
Nice. Yeah, I'll always have a soft spot for the Kanto region, the very first one that came out, but definitely that third generation was really a big one for us, since it kind of became kind of the baseline for the game at this point.
Okay.
If you could still find a copy of Ruby, Sapphire, or Emerald, it's a huge deal up until the point where they shut off the ability to transfer it because they kill the online home options and stuff. So
Oh,
you had to get them in there pretty quick.
Lyric Law says my kids occasionally liked Pokemon cards, but never really played. What they loved watching was the YouTube videos of people sculpting old Monster High dolls into evolutions, interpretations of various Pokemon.
I've seen stuff like that. I watch a few of those kinds of YouTube channels, where you'll, like, they're talking about here, where they take the action figures or the dolls or whatever, and they actually sculpt them out and like add new paint and like little add-ons and stuff like that. And they'll make like, oh, this is what Tyranitar would look like if it was a high school girl.
Right.
Um,
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot says Pokemon no. Must not be a fan of Pokemon Go.
Teach their own.
Yeah, no, and like I said, like I was a snob. I was a not non Pokemon snob, pretty much right up to Pokemon Go, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And now obviously we have it in our chat and stuff like that. I still haven't played any of the video games. I was a Monster Rancher person instead of a
Oh,
Pokemon
Monster
person.
Rancher, a man after my own heart.
Where you put the
Mar
CDs in and it would read the CD
Oh
and give you
yeah.
a
So when I really got heavy to play Monster Rancher was it was after 2 came out. It was before 3 on PlayStation 2. Actually, I don't think PS2 was out just yet. But I emulated it on my computer, the PlayStation 1 options to emulate. And so then I was able to use the CD player on my computer to put like the CDs in and
Oh,
actually
really?
read them. And yeah, oh yeah. It was like my crowning achievement of computer modifications was to be able to do that and play it on a controller and stuff.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved it. And I still have my save file. I can't play it anymore because I don't have any of the software. But yeah, no, I loved Monster Rancher. My favorite. I bred a golem with a oh no, what was the dog's name? The ice dog monster. Somebody in chat, I'm sure, can tell me. But I bred them together, and it came up, and it was a frozen blue golem, and I raised him from beginning all the way up to the dragon tournaments because they always had those weeks of the days of the week
Yeah.
tournaments.
Yeah.
And there was like the special dragon tournament that you could go to,
Yeah.
and he was specially trained to be able to fight off the dragons in those tournaments and win.
Oh, that's cool.
But the last day that I saved for him, no matter what I did, the next day he would die. So I was like, well, I am forever leaving him here. He will never leave this spot, and I will only ever go to him whenever there's a tournament.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's cool. I don't even remember. I remember the eyeball was called like a Suizu or Suzy, Suizo, something like that. But
Suezo, yeah.
I can't really remember much of the other creatures. I just remember how much fun we had. And
Yep.
the groups
There was
of
a little
us, like,
pink duck thing, Mochi.
yeah. Oh, and then there was the rabbit. There was a rabbit I had a lot
Yep.
of. And he was always
Hair.
the boxer.
With the red scarf.
Yeah. Were there any other games like that you played, like Pokemon or like the Monster Rancher that you played?
Oh, so many. Goodness, I couldn't begin to name them,
Digimon?
but yeah, oh, definitely Digimon, absolutely. I watched Digimon from the first season all the way until they brought Ty back as an adult. Was a lot of fun to watch. I didn't really get too much into the Digimon video games. By that point, I was already in college and like kind of more focused into like the Magic the Gathering stuff.
Yeah.
And realistically starting to do my own design work, which surprisingly enough just ate all of the time that I had to be able to play those kinds of games.
Yeah, for sure. And role playing, of course, right? Role playing?
Yep.
Role playing's got to take up time.
Oh, absolutely. So
got-
much time in college playing D&D and other games like that.
And we'll definitely talk about some role playing stuff later on here, guys. That's definitely on the docket because we're not going to have Kevin on here and not talk about role playing. Let's be honest about that.
Yep. But I don't know. Circling back to Pokemon Go,
Yeah.
I was playing it until they pretty much the last time I actually think I logged in was right after they released the Gen 4 Pokemon, and you could start catching those. So it was like, I'm gonna say a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now.
Okay.
And didn't obviously nobody really did much during COVID, but
right.
Played that for a little bit, and I still log in occasionally to send gifts to people that I know, but kind of. But Pokemon card game played for a little bit. That was a lot of fun. I never really did any tournaments or anything with that, but I always enjoyed reading the cards and seeing what they did with the different like weird styles of art that they did for those, because they would do like little claymation pictures and stuff like that.
I think I've got a foil first edition Gyarados somewhere my mom had when she passed away, and I thought, I was like, oh, I'll just grab this and keep it with. And I don't even know why she had it. But so yeah, I've got a Gen first edition Gyarados foil Pokemon.
Nice. Yeah. My one son recently started playing the Pokemon card game, but he really only started collecting the cards because I guess there was a thing they were doing on TikTok where you would go in and you would like open the pack and show which cards you got, and it would like give you stuff, something. I honestly couldn't even begin to tell you what it did, but he did it a lot. And so he ordered like 2 booster boxes of cards. And I was like, hey, if you want, I'll teach you how to play. And he's like, no, I have no interest in playing at all. I'm just buying these so I can open them up online. And I was like, oh, I mean, I'll play them. And he's like, I guess if you want, they're just going to be under my bed. I was like, okay, never mind then.
I mean, free cards for you to use, right?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't played in a while, but I was like, I thought it'd be kind of neat, you know? Maybe get his younger brother to start playing.
Yeah. No, I don't want to play games with dad. That's weird.
I know, right? That age.
Right? Did you play the newest video game? The newest Pokemon? What is it? Red, Blue,
Scarlet and Violet
Scarlet,
actually
Violet?
was the most recent one that came out. I unfortunately have not had the opportunity to pick it up and play it yet. Although I hear I dodged a bit of a bullet because it had some pretty big issues at the beginning with patches and whatnot and everything. So I still plan to buy it. Unfortunately, my schedule is such these days that I'm not sure I'll be able. This will probably be the first generation that I really don't dig a lot of
Yeah.
time into. Yeah.
You're gonna miss out on the motorcycle Pokemon where you can ride the Pokemon like a motorcycle.
Oh yeah, Koraidon and the other, yeah. It looks like a really cool game. It really does, and I would love to be able to play it if I could just find any more possible time. But I gotta prioritize things in order to make sure that I get my releases out on time for stuff.
Yeah, you gotta earn the monies.
Oh yeah,
Earn the
it's
monies
always
before
got
you
to
can.
come first.
What was a big misconception for you for Pokemon coming into it? Did you ever like look at it and be like, Pokemon is, you expected one thing and ended up being something completely different?
I'm not sure that I've ever really had that. I've been in it since almost day one as far as the video games are concerned. So I don't think I ever had any assumptions going into it.
Okay.
It was always just go in and collect the Pokemon and level them up. Um, I know back in the day I liked to do things like I liked finding all of the like little hacks and stuff that you could do before they were all over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you go up and do this and you get missing number and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I'd do that. But yeah.
All right. I'm gonna do. I got a crossover question for you.
All
Have
right.
you thought, or have you actually done a thought of doing a role playing game for Pokemon RPG? No.
As it so happens, I actually have a book that I released several years ago called Mystical Kingdom of Monsters. It's available now for Pathfinder First Edition, and D&D Fourth Edition was when I released it. And so it's actually got I have 158 or more Pokemon. Well, they're monsters, right? Obviously, can't call them Pokemon or anything. But it includes the trainer class that you can play. We got a 5-star recommended review from one of the like premier reviewers for Pathfinder D&D back in the day. And that was a lot of fun to get. It took me 3 times. Took me 3 tries to get it, but I did, which is awesome. But yeah, it's available now, and it's called Mystical Kingdom of Monsters. And I am actually working on. I have the preliminary content done for the trainer class for Pathfinder Second Edition, as well as several of the monsters that I've put out through my Patreon and stuff. But the idea is you play the trainer class, you go around, you find the monsters from the various Pathfinder bestiaries. And I have every one of the first edition bestiaries in there as far as 1 through 6 and which monster they're equivalent to. So you can get all of the different spells. Once you capture a monster, it gives you access to the spells that the monster gives you. It's called the trainer spells list.
Okay.
And then the trainer uses that as their go-to for their spells. So like if a monster has a breath weapon and the monster is CR8, you might get a 4th level breath weapon spell that you can use, and then it's governed by your spell slots per day. So it's not overpowered.
Yeah.
Even if you manage to catch a pit fiend at level 18 instead of, CR 21 or whatever,
Yeah.
you can't necessarily use it at its full capacity, so you're not like breaking the game by or
Ta-da! Well, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
And Whiskey Tango Foxtrot goes, "Oh, you opened up a topic he loves." Well, if you thought
indeed.
that if you thought that wasn't by plan, check out our next discussion topic is tabletop RPG design right below. I may or may not have done that intentionally. I may or may not have kind of knew the answer to my question, but I might be smart. I might kind of know what I'm doing sometimes. Maybe not all the time.
Great segue. Great segue.
You guys in chat, do you guys have any questions at all about any of our topics so far tonight or thoughts coming up? Feel free to throw them up there. We're going to talk some tabletop RPG design with Kevin here in a little bit. We're going to go to a break, however. So we're going to step aside to use the restroom. I'm going to run an ad in the background during our break time, but you guys can feel free to stretch your legs and hang out. Enjoy the clips that are going to play in the background. You're going to see some interviews and off the pod stuff and maybe some Game Masters workshops clips coming up. And who knows, Kevin, maybe you'll be one of the clips that it plays. So
All right.
we will be back in just a moment.
Cool.
Hello, everybody. We are back from break. Thanks for sticking around and hanging out with us for all of the things. We did some chatting about World of Warcraft. We chatted a little bit about Pokemon. We're going to talk a little bit about tabletop RPG and design. Kevin, when did you first start? And I know we talked about this on the podcast, and those that haven't, go back and check that episode. But when did you start role playing?
So I started role playing in college, actually. I had heard of D&D for years, but hadn't really ever had anybody in my life that played or knew much about it. And then like the first or second day I was in college, some of my now longtime friends came over and was like, "You play D&D?" And I was like, "I've heard of it." And they're like, "We've got a game. We have an open spot. Why don't you come play?" And I was like, "Okay." And they gave me the first session I ever played. They gave me a ranger with a quarterstaff. That keeps coming back. Anyway, uh, and yeah, I know the quarterstaff thing. What is that? But anyway, yeah. So and I killed a cockatrice with my quarterstaff with a lucky critical hit. So that was a lot of fun. Um, and yeah, been playing ever since. Actually, been kind of running my own games and forever GM for like since 2 sessions later when our DM didn't show up.
Yeah.
And then just kind of been that way forever since then. Now I've had the opportunity. I've taught my niece to GM, and she's played and run games for us. My brother's played. So my whole family at one time or another has or is playing.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
We have solved the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot dilemma. So, and it starts with, who would you credit in getting you started in the business, and why was it Hal Greenberg? To which I responded, "Are you Hal? Is this Hal?" It's Hal.
Who is this Hal you speak of?
Who is this Hal you speak of?
Hey Hal. That's cool. I didn't know that was his tag on here. That's really neat.
I didn't
Glad
either.
to see on
I
here.
didn't either.
What a surprise. I will give credit where credit's due, though. Hal is a very wonderful person who actually got me started, brought me in on Samurai Sheepdog, so that was really fun. I signed on for one of his Kickstarters as a they had it listed as a writing camp to learn to be a game designer.
Okay.
And I messaged him before I actually backed it at that level because it was like $500 or something. It also included breakfast with him over at Gen Con with him and Ed Greenwood and Clinton Boomer and a whole bunch of other artists and authors, Jale Johnson and a few others.
Okay.
But anyway, there was this whole cool tier of stuff. And I messaged him, though, and I was like, so I am a bit of a designer myself. I have some credits under my name at this point, so I think I can say that. And I don't feel like I would benefit from having a design option, but is there a chance that maybe we could talk about me writing some stuff for you? And he was like, yeah, I think we could work that out. And we met at Gen Con and in person for the first time. He got to meet my wife Amy and everything, and we just all hit it off, and it was just excellent. And then I wrote a couple things to show them what I could do and showed them some of the stuff I'd already done. And from then on, we just kind of continued forward, and here we are now.
Nice. Awesome,
Yes,
awesome.
all of the authors of The
All of
Awakened.
the authors of The Awakened, of which I've
Yeah.
had multiple of those authors on the podcast. So, so yeah, Hal's been. I got to talk. So the old podcast. For those that are watching the show, and I don't have the timer on for the tabletop RPG design yet, so we're good on that. For those that don't know that are in the stream, like I was part of another podcast before Epic Realms, two other podcasts before Epic Realms ever happened, and one of them we had um Kevin, I don't know if you were on that or not, Kevin. Was it you? It was Hal. I know it was Hal. It was
It was probably me if it was Hal,
yeah,
because
I think it was
I
you.
usually was
Yeah,
on
it
with
might have
Hal.
been you, Hal, and Richard, I think were on that.
Would make sense.
Um maybe Eric DeB, Eric Scott DeB, I think was on
Yep.
there as well. So I think the four of you, Hal, Eric, and Richard were on that other podcast. And because of that show that I was, I was the host of, I was like afterwards when Epic Realm first started and started building, I wrote to Hal. I was like, Hal, you want to come back on the show and do stuff? And I basically messaged all three of you, and Eric and I have been pretty good friends pretty much ever since that episode. We kept in touch, and so yeah, I'd love to eventually get Hal on the podcast to get him on there because I know he was not feeling well because it was going to be you and him. We're going to be one of the like you guys were going to be a dynamic duo, and then he ended up getting sick, and it was and you got to have the whole show to yourself. I really think that you just poisoned him, but that's just me.
No, uh, not that time anyway.
Not that time.
But no, Hal is right. He is very much his own person and a major personality in and of himself. So
yeah.
definitely he would be great to see come on again.
When in doubt, blame Kevin. It's your. I'm not. I'm not in doubt. I'm not in doubt. I don't.
Yeah.
But so yeah, everyone. Hal is a great guy, and we'll have to have him on the podcast here again. I'll send you an email, Hal. I'll send you an email. We'll get it set up. I'm actually just starting to schedule here in the next couple months. So okay.
For those curious, Hal is one of the founding members of Samurai Sheepdog and really got things started between him, Doug Harrington. No, goodness, I'm so sorry, Ken Shannon and Doug. Anyway, yeah. So the three of them, and then they brought me on, and we've been working together for a very long time.
Yeah, and you guys do some awesome stuff. And let's talk about some of that awesome
I'm going
stuff.
to. Don't worry.
Yeah, let me start this off here. Is it so? Say people come up to you and they're like, "Hey, I want to start, developing my own RPG stuff, or I want to design my own stuff and put it out there."
Mm-hmm.
What's kind of some of the first things you would suggest to new people that are like trying to do their stuff, their own stuff?
Oh, yeah. So absolutely. Definitely, my first thing would be do it. Like, I know it sounds weird, but like, you want to say you want to do it, but until you just get out there and do it, you're not gonna know. And like, even if it's just a basic Word doc with like a random stock art piece or something, make a couple monsters and share them on Facebook or Twitter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Come up with an idea for a race and just build out a couple feats for an ancestry that you like for Pathfinder, things like that. And then eventually, reach out to me and pay me money to lay out your work. And
Yeah.
But no, it's in all seriousness though. Yeah, I would tell them just, have the confidence in yourself. If you feel like you can do it, you probably can, and you should try. There's a lot of different outlets for self-publishing these days. There's a lot of different options and free programs that you can use to do it. I myself, I've been doing it for many years now, so I do use like paid options like InDesign and Adobe Cloud and stuff like that. But like, you don't have to. I know plenty of wonderful designers who use free programming that they use online to create stuff and things like that. And then you can share it on websites like DriveThruRPG, Open Gaming Store with John Raced. There's even Paizo has their own actual like sales pages that you can go into with your Pathfinder content if that's what you want to write. But there's things like GM's Guild for Dungeons and Dragons. There's Pathfinder Infinite, which I absolutely love. I was one of the first people to actually start publishing to it, and I was honored to be one of the first Infinite Masters that they introduced as well. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. But I remember when they first announced Pathfinder Infinite, I was like, "Oh, this is super cool," because it's. I don't want to say that it's that they took it from anything, because it's so much different than some of the other stuff that was out there.
Hmm.
Um, but I really enjoyed the openness for it, not just for game design, but like some of the authors that were out there, like they can write Pathfinder. The people that were like, I wrote XYZ novel from Pathfinder Tales. Now they can write short stories and stuff that are still set in that world, and continue their stories if they want. So I thought that
Oh
some of that
yeah.
kind of stuff was really really cool, and being able to expand on it. What when it comes to Pathfinder Infinite, was there any rules, or they're like, you can do this but you can't do this? Because obviously, like, there's it's a whole form thing that they have filled out. I don't know the
Sure.
exact rules. What are kind of
Yeah.
some of the main things you have to
Uh,
worry about?
s- so the primary things are going to be kind of standard across all of those different platforms, be it Pathfinder Infinite or Dungeons and Dragons. You've got to kind of stay true to the content. So, like for example, Pathfinder Infinite, talking specifically, you want to stay within the bounds generally of Galarian options of things. Like you might have an idea for a specific class or an ancestry or something of that sort, but on Pathfinder Infinite, the preference is that you somehow tie that content into the larger world of Galarian, because ultimately Pathfinder Infinite is supposed to be kind of an addendum to the Pathfinder role playing game. Um, and that's one of the things I strive to do with all of my different releases that I put out on there, is I delve through pages of the Pathfinder wiki and like archives of Nethys and the different books that I own and stuff, and look for specific Galarian lore and like content that I can use and adapt and manipulate to my own needs. And it's a lot of fun to do that, because I've learned so much about that world since I started putting stuff out for Pathfinder Infinite, and I just love every bit of it and all of the new stuff that they're coming out with over the next year or two. You know, there's some perks to being Infinite Masters. You get once you make Infinite Master status, you can actually get things like you get a couple early releases here and there, where you can write content for them before they actually release, and then you release them at the same time,
Okay.
and you'll see those ads. So like, it's not a secret or anything. The Paizo literally shares the content from Pathfinder Infinite and says, hey guys, we just released Firebrands. In addition to Firebrands, you can get this book and find it on Pathfinder Infinite, and it expands how many Firebrands options you have and stuff like that.
Yeah. How do they deal with things that are and aren't canon through Pathfinder Infinite?
Well, okay, so Pathfinder Infinite is not technically canon to the regular RPG stuff as far as Paizo is concerned, although they have the ability and right through our contract that you sign when you go into it and stuff, that they could say they'll reach out to you and say, hey, we really like that. We'd like to add it in if they ever want to,
Yeah.
I'd love that one of these days. That'd be awesome. Somebody's like, oh, we really like that class. Um, but
And then do
anyway,
they just republish it as an official source book, or?
I would imagine that would be how it goes. I haven't seen it happen yet. I know that there are people who worked in Pathfinder Infinite as third-party designers who are now designing either freelance or permanently working for Paizo.
Okay.
Yeah, and I imagine the stuff that their Pathfinder Infinite stuff kind of stays as an addendum, but they have ways now to do kind of more official channels of
Yeah.
adding stuff in, and then you can reference back to that and stuff like that. So
What are your thoughts on some of the technology when you're talking about game design? Some of the technology and apps that are out there, like a Dungeon Alchemist, Map Maker, or any of that kind of stuff.
I'm a big fan of them. I don't use as many of them as I probably could. Um, I only recently finally downloaded Foundry,
Foundry. Yeah.
because I've had a like a gold user, whatever, permanent forever status or whatever on that for a couple years, and then only in November did I finally open it up for the first time and say, all right, I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do this. And so I whipped up a class, and I'm working on getting it published to their sales floor to be able to actually like have it out there on my Pathfinder Infinite stuff to say, oh yeah, here it's now a Foundry module.
Nice. What
Yeah.
about like Roll 20? Do you guys have any of your stuff set for Roll 20 or like the Hero Lab? I know Hero Lab used to be probably not as huge as it used to be now with all the VTTs, but it's still a pretty good program. Do you guys do anything with those?
Again, unfortunately, I haven't really had time to. I'm kind of the only person that does a lot of the stuff as far as design work and everything is concerned. So a lot of it falls to me to manage what things take priority over others.
Mm-hmm.
And the first priority always has to be our Patreon, because we want to make sure we're there up front for our people that are backing us and everything. And so then, from there we have our major projects. Like we're wrapping up the Pathfinder second edition version of Lands of Thea, the fifth edition version, and then eventually, somewhere in the future, I'll have time to actually go back and finish making a Foundry module or a Roll20 option. I know we have somebody that we were talking to recently, that Hal knows through the Federation that he's in for the the creator relief program, the RPG creator relief program. And we were talking about they were going to do not Foundry, there was another virtual tabletop that they're going to do stuff for us. And so we're working on that in the background, so we'll have them do that for us, and they'll get a good sum out of it, and then we'll get our content actually on the virtual tabletops and stuff, so that'll be fun.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about putting together your own, being able to say, I'm going to make up my own RPGs, other than, it's a job and you get paid besides that? But what's the most rewarding thing about that? Is it like people coming up to you at Gen Con and be like, oh, I really love this story or this adventure, or people on your Patreon, or.
Honestly, I really like it when I've got a couple people here and there who have reached out to me through messaging, either through Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and said, "Hey," and they'll just ask a question, like, "Oh, hey, I'm playing a culinarian, and I just need to know if this recipe is available for that class." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, here, let me answer that question for you." And just little things like that have always been a lot of fun to see, because it shows me that people care enough to use these classes to ask these questions. um and obviously I love all of the reviews, good or bad, whatever they may be. I use the poor reviews. If I get them, I use those as an opportunity to learn and grow. And more often than not, I'll go back and I'll actually fix the product and say, okay, I've made some updates to it, I've reviewed it, I found where you're talking about, I've now here's the updated version of the product, so that hopefully it's a little bit better. you know Take that with a grain of salt, of course, because you're not always going to agree on the design choices. So
How much do you get to play, like actually role play? Like, do you get to
I'm
design stuff and then be like, I'm gonna play this design to make sure it works, or is it just like work to you?
I'm so happy to say that I am currently in a regular game. We play almost every Sunday with my niece currently running. I ran the most, or I'm actually running now. She ran the most recent iteration before me, but we are playing an updated version of Ravenloft using Pathfinder Second Edition. And so we're doing like Realms of Dread stuff. And I just walked them through a scenario where they were all getting their hero readings. And the as the hero reading was happening, they were like pulled into an alternate reality of like, oh, here's your past, and give them a bit of a story. And I've got a surprise for them coming up in the next couple weeks that they're gonna just be like, what?
Nice.
I won't spoil it in case they watch this later, but
Now,
they're gonna love it.
is that something that you worked, like a story that you worked on for developing for people to be able to purchase as well, or is that just your own story?
uh So yeah, well, so there's a bit of a two answers to that. The first and
Yeah, yeah.
foremost is I generally just riff whenever I run anyway, so it's
Okay.
never really starts out as an option to be able to, but I always keep meticulous notes of what I've done and how we play and the options that they chose and what other options they could have taken. And then I always use that. I've got files upon files of old games that we've had that I could either write into stories and make the necessary modifications, or turn into RPG options like modules and adventure paths and stuff like that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, this one in particular, I actually have a formatted player's guide that I put together with many different character options. They in Pathfinder 2, you get options called character archetypes, which are like pseudo classes that you can take starting at second level. And
Okay.
yeah,
Cool. Do you know do you enjoy doing more like making characters, making NPCs, making classes, or do you prefer like to be able to sit down and write like I want to tell this story or I want to make an adventure? Which of those seems to like do you enjoy doing more?
My preference waxes and wanes. Right now, I really enjoy a lot of the ancestries. Pathfinder 2 opened up a lot of new ways to enjoy ancestries, previously races, right? So they kind of changed the terminology. Now it's now you pick an ancestry and a heritage. Um, and so that opened up a lot of gameplay that wasn't there really before, or it was there, but it was written in kind of an offhand way. Now it's like a focus of the game. And so I've really enjoyed that new space to play in. Um, but as evidenced by Mystical Kingdom of Monsters, I actually don't mind making monsters. I think I've made less of them since I wrote that because I did so many for it.
Right.
Um, and same thing for like Lands of Thea, was our first major campaign setting release in a few years that we've had since the last time we did um anyway. Yeah, so we do those. And so it depends on where things are. And then right now I use kind of my Patreon as like guiding principle. I get a lot of requests on Patreon for races and character options and stuff. And so a lot of things on that I have to balance out is when somebody asks me for something like I want a Death Knight from World of Warcraft, and I'm like, okay, well, would a Death Knight fit as its own actual class in Pathfinder, or would I use it as a supplement of like maybe a Paladin or a Champion
Right.
is Pathfinder 2, and maybe it'll be a new archetype option for the Champion,
Yeah,
you know. And
for
so
sure.
there's a lot of balancing factors of which one I'm going to do for that.
Do you enjoy doing that? Is that
Oh, I do.
like a create makes you get to feel creative and sit down and know that other people are going to dig it and enjoy it as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love my Patreon has been going for probably actually not probably, definitely. This is the second month of our fifth year of my Patreon being of steady releases. Every month for 5 years now. I've been releasing Patreon content. And I've had between 10 and 17 backers at any given time. Six of which have been consistent with me since day one, which I've loved. I have great support in that regard. Um, and I have a tier that lets you actually request content, and three of those tier content requests has been full by the same three people since pretty much the first couple months of the Patreon, and every month they surprise me with the awesome stuff that they request.
That's
It's
awesome.
so fun. I've learned about so many different topics that I've been able to design for. One of them really loves anime, and he'll give me these requests. Like he watched an anime called Shield Hero, and he was like, "I want you to build this character class for me." And I was like, "All right, well, let's see what we could do." And I had to go and actually watch the anime because I'd
Right.
never heard of it,
Yeah.
and so that introduced me to that. And then another one is he always gives some really cool requests for um, like monsters and other like options like that and stuff. And so I'll create those for him. Um, and every month, I've in the actual spot that I'm writing in, I'll put, requested by so and so, and it's just a lot of fun. I actually have I have all of their individual requests in their own individual files that I'm compiling into like their books,
Okay.
right? So like this person has been requesting with me since the first month of the Patreon. I have every one of his requests that he's ever given me, and I'm going to compile them into one book, and it's going to be his book.
That's
Thus,
cool.
names games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome. How many I completely lost my train of thought on what my next question was going to be.
that's okay.
uh oh, the so you have your names games stuff. And then is that because a lot of your guys' stuff is on Drive Through RPG. Is it just like at a certain point you release your Patreon stuff as a book on Drive Through?
Yeah, so I started doing this a couple years back. So for whatever reason, I've had several people who have reached out to me over the years that said, "Hey, for whatever reason, I can't back you on Patreon, or I'm unwilling to back you on Patreon." Be that as it may, I won't quibble or question why. Um, but they've been like, if you would just release some of this content, outside of it, then I would gladly buy it from you. And I was like, I think we can make that work. And I worked it out with my patrons. I was like, hey, here's the deal. You're gonna have first access to everything and early access to everything. And obviously you'll get credit toward making requests and deciding what I'm going to write and what features I'm going to do and stuff like that. And then usually, actually always, it's a year after the Patreon comes out, I will release it on Drive Through RPG and Open Gaming Store and Paizo, um, for people to actually pick up the compiled content.
And those that don't know, I do have a Drive Through RPG link in my panel. You can just scroll down and you can click on that, and it'll bring you right to Drive Through RPG, and you can just search names games. And how many of those have you guys come up with?
We just at the beginning of last month, we released the 2022 annual collection. So, and it goes back to 2019.
Wow,
Yep.
that's awesome.
And I just realized that we really started hitting on this Patreon topic before the Patreon conversation.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking about that. It's
We'll
like, well,
we'll kind of
just
blend the two.
we'll just
It's
blend
fine.
the two. Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
fine. What's the most difficult, or the most challenging yet rewarding thing that you've had to put together or make?
Ooh, good question. I would have to say finding
Nemo. No, sorry.
yeah, right. I wouldn't be surprised if I got that request at some point. Um, you get some weird requests on Patreon sometimes from people. Goodness, I would have to say if there's anything that was probably the hardest thing to do, it was to make sure that some of the content that I was releasing was balanced and to my liking. I have a very strict balancing system that I'll go over with you here probably in a little bit. But the idea is that making sure that something is fun and fits the theme. We had a request, or it wasn't even a request. It was for Lands of Thea. My fellow designer, Rashid James, who wrote the book. He actually was the original designer of the content for Pathfinder. And then I went back and kind of cleaned everything up and made sure everything was to the, where we needed it to be and did the layout and stuff like that. But we had a noble class, and the noble is always known kind of as the excuse me, the noble was always kind of known as like the talking face kind of class, like the
Right.
leader, right? And we wanted to do something different. And we were like, how is Thea going to approach nobles differently than, oh, I'm the party face and I'm this rich person who just goes around spending all my money.
That's my Muppets dance, by the way. That's like what the
Nice.
Muppets do.
Nice. Okay, yeah, but so as I was saying though, talking about the noble, we wanted to do something different, and we ended up tying it into the world story of in Thea, the aristocrats and the nobles and stuff all have a heavy emphasis on sending their kids out early in life to live and experience the world around them.
Right.
And that's usually by signing them up with an adventurers guild and basically making them become an adventurer. And so they're adventuring nobles. And they still get some access to their money from their family. They get like it's called a stipend. And like if they go anywhere within their realm of influence, they like get free stays at inns and they can extend that out to their friends and stuff like that. Um, but then there's also combat oriented stuff that fits with the theme of the class because they're an adventuring noble, so they have to know how to survive and defend themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Yeah.
And people will have to check that out and find that. I love hearing about like some of the cool off the side like ideas or other designs that people come up with for classes or archetypes or prestige classes or whatever. So I always think that that's super cool. I know where the timer went off, but I did want to ask you because a lot of the stuff that you guys work on is D&D and Pathfinder. Are there other systems that you're like I'd really like to make a book for Mutants and Masterminds or Deadlands, or I'd like to make an add-on for another system. Is there anything that from one of the other systems that you'd love to be able to make something for?
Yeah, there's a couple out there. I've always enjoyed White Wolf. We had a very fun, amazing campaign that a friend of mine ran in college of White Wolf. Um, but at the time, they didn't have an open option for
Right,
you to
right.
create for them, right? They were very close to the vest. Nobody designs for us unless they design in-house. Now they have their own version of GM's Guild
Oh,
that they do. Yeah, it's on drive through. I do not remember the name. I think it's the Vault,
okay.
maybe, but it's definitely something. It's for them, and they do that. And one of these days I might do that, but unfortunately, life is kind of taking me
Right,
away
right.
from that direction. So, but that one, I've done a little bit of work with a friend in Savage Worlds.
Okay.
He's publishing his RPG campaign through Savage Worlds, actually. Um, and I learned a little bit of that to kind of talk to him about it and stuff. Um, and actually got a chance to play with him in his own setting for a while. That was kind of fun.
That's
So
neat.
it
Cool.
was a lot of fun, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just so many good gaming systems out there that it's
Mhm.
like, how can you not want to do something in all of
Right.
All right, that brings us to our next subject, which we've already kind of started. We talked about it, but how did you guys come up? Like, how did you decide? Okay, we're gonna do a Patreon, and how did
Uh,
that, morphosis? By life,
sure.
he means World of Warcraft.
Yes, indeed. You don't get 40 characters up to level 60 and higher by yeah. No, I have a very understanding family actually.
Right.
Um, but no. So anyway, to your question, um, so I started the Names Games Patreon. It kind of so this question is going to go back a little bit, actually,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
before the Patreon. Um, my my father passed away in 2017, and when he did, as part of my coping and recovery from that, I started a book online on Facebook that I started talking to people and asking them, "Hey, I need something to distract me. Give me some ideas, some things that you've always wanted to see for Pathfinder that nobody's created yet, and I'll put them together for you." And I got a bunch of really cool responses and stuff, and that uh, became the Book of Many Things, which is one of my first releases that I've put out for Pathfinder, as my own solid thing that I had done.
Yeah.
Um, and that became that got a lot of really good reviews. People loved it. They love the idea of being able to go in and get your request from online and seeing it come to life in the book. And it ultimately turned into, we have actually the third Book of Many Things that we are almost finished with. I say 3 years after it initially released. um, I'm getting there.
You're getting
uh,
there.
but yeah, and as well as a successful Kickstarter with a campaign that we released, Kickstarter content that came out that was awesome. We did an April Fool's only version of the game called the Decidedly Laughable Collection. So it's the Book of Many Things DLC.
Okay.
That was a lot of fun. And has a bunch of like goofy stuff in it, but even though that stuff is goofy, it actually takes itself seriously within the context of the book itself. So like, yes, we give you the option to play dinosaurs, and we give you the options to play the super spy from Archer, but they play themselves seriously within the context of the book. So, you know, um, and yeah, so that's a lot of fun. But so that said, eventually I had and still have so many requests that are backlogged that I was like, I've got to find some other way to organize these, to maybe prioritize some of them here and there. And I noticed that there was kind of a trend of people opening up and starting Kickstarter, or not Kickstarters, Patreons.
Yeah.
I had several friends who had some that they were starting up, and I was like, that's not a bad idea. I think I could do something like that. And I jumped on and I was like, all right, what am I going to call this? And I originally, to honor my dad, this is why I started with that part of it, I was going to call it James Games. That was obviously taken. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that because I wanted to do something that I could actually kind of have a bit of a trademark related to for my own content online and stuff. And it turns out Names Games was available, and I was like, sweet. So I used that, and then I turned that into a into its own thing. So now the idea is it's Names Games because it's your game,
Yeah.
right? So I'm making it for you. So if it's Ronald's game, there you go. It's Ronald's game. That is your content that you asked for that I put together for you and things like that, you know. And Ronald's one of my backers on
Yeah.
Patreon,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, and so I've just been doing that, and that was in 2019. You know, we started out in April, which is the month of my dad's birthday, so that's why it was a big deal. You know, I was like, oh, I'll start this in April. It'll be a big thing. It'll be an anniversary every year. I'll celebrate it, and it's been awesome to do that ever since then. Um, and so our annual runs always go from April to March of the following year, and then we compile them into what is generally has been a 200 or more page book, that we then publish and is available in print. But the print option is only available to Patreon backers. That's one of the benefits of being able to actually back on Patreon,
Okay.
is that nobody else gets access to the print copy. You can get the PDF if you buy it on drive through a year later. But to get the print copy of the book, you actually have to get it through Patreon.
Nice. How did you
Yeah.
decide what you were gonna do? Because like you get in there and you're like, you don't know. Say you. I'm assuming you didn't know a lot about Patreon first going in. You just heard from other people, right?
No, I did a lot of research
Okay.
before I even started it. I looked at how people handled their tiers. I looked at what kind of price ranges they were doing. I knew from the start that I wanted to have kind of an easy buy-in option that lets people just kind of see what I'm doing for the month. You know,
Yeah.
what's Kevin been up to this month? And so that's our $2 tier. You can come in, and even if you don't pay, you can actually go to patreon.com names games right now, and there are pages and pages of years back of just one page previews, two-page preview of a class that you can actually look at right now and
Right.
see it without even buying into it. Um,
Like
but
the
if you pay
S
the two,
class vigilante.
yes, like the S class vigilante. But if you buy in at the $2 range, for example, you'll get the actual like officially laid out previews, and things like that over the course of the month. $5 gets you the full month as a collected option. You know, so you get the full. It's roughly between 12 and 20 pages. I try to tend more toward the 20, but there have been times where I got 12 instead or whatever. And then there's the $10, which gives you the $10 tier always it gives you access to everything that has come out for the year starting in April, as well as the current month, and then you get at the end of the year you'll get the compilation,
Okay.
right? And you have the option to buy the print copy.
Yeah.
So for $10 plus, you get $3 in credit toward buying stuff on Drive Through RPG. So it ends up being only really $7 versus the 5 for the other
Yeah.
tier. So that's been a lot of fun.
How
And
did
then
you
the last
decide? How
tier,
did you
I'm sorry, go
decide?
ahead.
How did you decide to put the tiers together in this way? How did you sit down and go, okay, this is what I want for this tier, and go, okay, well, I want to put this in here, or because you're writing and designing games,
Hmm.
but how do you break down like, okay, if I'm gonna create content
Hmm.
and I'm gonna put it on Patreon, how did you go, okay, well, this makes sense to be at this tier as opposed to this tier or something else, and people will actually pay for this tier at this price point. How did you decide that? Did you have to do like research, or did you ask around like what would you pay for, or did you just look at what other people were doing?
I generally just looked at what other options were available out there, from other designers. And I told myself right off the bat, I said, for sure, to get the best possible access, I wanted to keep it at around $10, because that's usually like most people once a month, $10 for something like 20 pages of brand new content for an edition that doesn't exist anymore for regular content. Not a bad deal.
Yeah.
I could do that. I could swing $10. Um, and then cutting that back a little bit, well, I could pay $5, and $5 will still get you the content for the month. You just won't get everything that's been released so far,
Yeah.
you know. But if you're interested, hey, there's that. It's only $5 more.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
How did
And
you
then
get? How did you
yeah.
know? going in. So like, okay, 20 pages of content for $10. But you're
Mhm.
starting off and it's like, okay, well, I'm not even getting this started. What if only one person signs up?
Well,
Like, did you have to
you
deal
know,
with that kind of a thought on that?
I was lucky enough that I had 3 backers during my first month of content releases that were at $10 or $20. Um, so I didn't have to worry about that, and I was so happy to be the case. But I did always have a contingency that, if I went a few months where I really only was releasing, 12, my minimum required pages of content, right? Because there you have to, with Patreon, you want to set a minimum requirement so that people know this is what they can expect you to do, and then everything else is kind of icing on the cake. And so
Yeah.
my minimum was always 12 pages of content, which would have been basically the average of 3 pages of content over 4 weeks,
Okay.
right? And that's not a whole hard thing to write whenever you consider how the formats of stuff is done. um, but if ever I ran into a situation where I didn't have any backers for so long, I would probably shutter and just say, I'll come back when there's a little more hype for it or whatever again. Um, Thankfully, I didn't have to worry about that though.
Yeah.
I was one of the lucky ones that I had a few really awesome people that trusted me at the beginning and have stuck with me ever since. And I have no issue whatsoever most months writing. Sometimes I've had a couple months here and there where I've had to cut content from that month to push into the next one because I had a few extra things that I was like, all right, at this point I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to push this for a month because I'll just be back, I'll just be good, I got a good backlog.
Yeah. What do you do for art? Do you have like a specific artist that you're like, this is my artist for my Patreon? And how
I
does that work?
Yeah, I have a few artists that I have worked with over the years, either through commission or my primary resource. And I tell this and everybody that asks me, Drive Through RPG has one of the coolest, best options for stock art I have ever seen. Like, no, just hands down, there are some amazing artists on there between like Dean Spencer and Brett Newfield and Jacob Blackman and just so many others that I couldn't even name them all. But if you just go into Drive Through RPG and you search stock art with like a general description of what you're looking for, you will find something absolutely awesome.
Cool.
Oh, thank you. It has been my pleasure so far. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Grinder.
There's the link right there for people that want to go and check out the Patreon. Some awesome stuff. I bring up the art because every time I see that, I'm like, this is like top notch art. Like the
It
covers and
is.
the stuff, like it's just so cool of art every time I see it.
Oh, and I absolutely love it. It is always just wonderful art. And like, I'm surprised at how many people seemingly don't see it. Like, it's just, you hear all the time of these artists that put stuff, oh, I don't want to put anything on drive through, you never make any money. And I'm like, seriously, I'm always buying stock art on drive through.
Right? For sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that said, stock art is more of a general everyman option.
Yeah.
There is also the fact of commissions, which obviously for artists is usually the best thing. um I'm the same way, Grinder,
Stick
with the
people.
art.
Stick
I
people.
I couldn't draw a stick person with a ruler. I not even kidding. I have tried. I can't draw in any way, shape, or form.
But
I will
the way you
design
said
you.
that, the way you said that, like I can't draw a stick person with a ruler.
Yeah, I will design you a 200-page book with a specific theme before I could draw you something.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, but yeah, so that's where a lot of my art comes from, and the commissions are always awesome. I've always loved it. When I could afford it, I will always commission work from an artist. I love to support the artists in the communities that I follow, and if I can afford to, I will always do that. Make sure that I'm reaching out to them and saying, hey, do you have commissions open? Can I pick something up from you? You know, and if they're not available, I'll go find them on drive through or something like that and pick up their work there.
Right. For
I
sure.
actually, over the last few years, I've gotten pretty good at being able to like narrowed down my searches in such a way that like some of those art pieces you'll find that seem relatively obscure, like just out of the blue, I was like, one day I was like, oh, let's see, I need an octopus humanoid with you know, and it comes up with this like illithid like creature thing, and I'm like, that's perfect, I'll use that.
Yeah. What do you do for trying to increase growth in Patreon? Do you do anything in particular? Do you do social media or just word of mouth or ask the people in Patreon to try and spread the word?
All of the above. I don't feel like I'm very successful when it comes to promoting my Patreon as much as I try.
Yeah.
I do go on to like Twitter and podcasts, as is this one, and Facebook and things like that. Um, but you know, I I have been very happy to have, like I said, the lowest I've ever gotten on my Patreon backers once I really got moving over the course of that first year. I've never dipped below 10, and I've been super happy about that. The highest I've gotten was I had 19 backers at one point, and that was like I was like, "Oh man, just give me 20. If I could get 20, I'll like do something brand new. I don't even know what yet."
Yeah.
And I didn't quite hit that mark, but one of these days I'm hoping to. And I keep trying to make things available. I always tell people, um, I've had a couple people that have said, oh, I would back the Patreon, but I would want exclusive things. And it's like, well, you do get exclusive things on the Patreon, even if it doesn't always look like it. Like for one thing, there's a whole year gap before you see anything even remotely off of Patreon.
Right.
And then also you get things, generally they're going to be cheaper if you're going to buy them now on Patreon versus waiting a year and then picking up the combined
PDF.
content on
Yeah.
drive through, right? And that's just the nature of the business, is how that goes. But
Yeah. For
yeah,
sure. Do you
but
see a
I'd
lot
love
of
to.
after Patreon market? Do you see a decent market for the stuff after it's off of Patreon or I don't want to say off of Patreon, but once it's on like a drive through?
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I'm very happy with the way that not only drive through but also the open gaming store has done me very well over the years. The both of those uh storefronts have just been absolutely awesome. And I see plenty of sales. I actually celebrated just the other day. I'm not sure if you follow me on Facebook, but I just posted a screenshot the other day. The ribbon over on the side of Drive Through RPG when you log in,
Yeah.
the filter ribbon, Samurai Sheepdog is now in the general Pathfinder ribbon. So
Oh, okay.
if you filter for Pathfinder, you'll see Samurai Sheepdog in that list with like Rogue Genius and Green Ronin, and yeah. And I was like, this is so cool. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, so the next major goal for me is going to be to get on the main page ribbon without any filters,
Yeah.
because you'll see things like Legendary Games and Cobalt Press, and I'd love to see Samurai Sheepdog on there someday. It would be like one of my crowning achievements.
Yeah, that'd be super awesome. And I mean, you guys work so hard out there, and I know when the open gaming license debacle on social media happened, like you guys were at the forefront of my mind. Like, how is this going to affect my friends at Samurai Sheepdog? Like, hopefully,
Oh,
like
thanks.
so you guys and there's a handful of others, obviously, Cobalt Press and whatnot. But I was like, I was really concerned, and I voiced
Yeah.
my opinion on on TikTok and social media because like there's so many people that I'm friends with or even acquaintances with that are in the business that would have been heavily affected by
Hmm.
if that had gone wrong. Um,
Oh yeah.
and
We
so I was very concerned. So I'm really glad that you guys have a place to be able to produce things and do things and get
Mhm.
out there and now get your name on like the Pathfinder list and stuff like that. So it's super
Oh
awesome.
yeah. No, absolutely. Just to speak on that for just a moment,
Yeah.
when January rolled around and we first heard about that on January, I'm going to say 6th off the top of my head, but I don't think that was exactly the day. Uh, but when it first broke, I was floored. To be fair,
Hmm.
I mean, kind of felt betrayed. I'm sure a lot of us did. Um, why would this happen? What, I really hope this isn't real.
Yeah.
Obviously it was. Um, but then after that initial blow and the shock of it, I was like, okay, time to get to work. Let's put some contingencies together. I'm not a lawyer. by any stretch of imagination. Although I do feel like I understand enough of how the content and the OGL and the what's free to use and all that good stuff works and everything like that. And the premise at the time was that supposedly it was like January 16th or something like that, that it was basically a kill date, was you could design things for this content up to this particular day and we won't say anything about it. And after this date, if you design anything, then we're going to have words. And I was like, okay, if that's the case, and I legitimately, I legitimately took time off. I took an entire week off from my 8 to 5.
Wow.
And was like, hey guys, I'm going to be gone for a week. And they're like, oh, okay, sure. And I spent that whole week putting together contingencies to be able to meet that deadline with all of our content and stuff. I didn't end up having to use it, so I'm going to be repurposing a bunch of it down over the course of time now that I have time to spread it out.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, it was absolutely a hectic time. And it's still not completely over. We've still got some issues that they're running into now. And I'll be honest, I was already in the market of not really doing much in the way of Pathfinder, 5th edition, because we don't see very many sales in 5th edition compared to other Pathfinder related stuff.
Right.
Because 5th edition got eaten up by DM's Guild, and I never wanted to contribute to DM's Guild, so I never made a name for myself there. And I never, all of my stuff for 5th edition is on DriveThruRPG, and DriveThruRPG, as far as I am aware, unless you are somebody like Cobalt Press or Legendary Games or one of those big guys, you're not really going to sell 5th edition content outside of DM's Guild.
Right.
Has been my experience, at least. I've always seen at minimum double sales of Pathfinder 1st edition and 2nd edition stuff by comparison.
Yeah. Is 1st edition Pathfinder stuff still doing pretty good for you guys?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and probably better.
I was going to say, now that they're not really doing more for 1st edition.
Sorry, I was waiting for that to finish.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes. And that's primarily, so you end up with two camps, right? You got the camp of people who are like, okay, Paizo's done making 1st edition. It's a complete edition now. I don't need anything else. I have all the things I could possibly ever want from Paizo. And that's fine. Good for you. Right. You're not my customer. I don't mind. You enjoy the game you want to play. I'm more looking for the people who are like, man, Pathfinder's over. They're not making stuff for Pathfinder 1st edition anymore. What if I want to play an automaton? What if I want to play, a gunslinger or a nanocyte or, things like that. A different kind of gunslinger. Obviously, they did have gunslinger in 1st edition, but yeah, or a thaumaturge. They didn't have a thaumaturge or an inventor in Pathfinder 1st edition. Hi, I'm here writing this stuff for Pathfinder 1st edition.
Right.
I'm generally releasing it on Pathfinder Infinite right now.
Yeah, I know a lot of us in our little core group was really saddened by the move from 1st edition to 2nd edition. Now, I've had Jason Bowman on the podcast, and we talked about why and how that happened. And I don't know if you know or not, but he was talking about, like, there was just so many little things piled up to big things that needed to be changed, where they were like, okay, we've just got so much, doing that much of an errata or doing another Unchained type book just didn't make sense to them. And so then they just started accumulating all of the changes they wanted, and they're just like, okay, these are all the changes we want, we're just going to change it, and we're just going to make a new edition. And that was kind of that. But at the same time, a lot of us who were like, but we like 1st edition. Like, there's so many books still yet to be written. Like, they have an entire continent that we haven't even seen a map of, sort of situation.
Right. Well, and I'm right there with you. I love Pathfinder 1st edition. Obviously, I wouldn't have designed for it if I didn't.
Right.
But I can also understand the need for reassessing, like Jason has said. And I've seen a few of his interviews. I think I caught the one on yours.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but I definitely saw one.
We're just gonna go with yes.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I do try to catch a good number of them, but
it's hard.
I may or may not have seen that one. Um, no, but no, that said, the role of a new edition is always to see, who's willing to try out the new content, who wants to see what's changed and what's different, and who wants to really build that fort for themselves. You got your own little pillow fort of first edition books that you're happy with, and maybe you do want some new third party content that looks into what Pathfinder never did.
Right.
I'm sure that ultimately when that continent that you talked about comes out and they introduce it, I'll be there ready to convert it to first edition for people and be like, here, if you're playing first edition, you've always wanted this book, here's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because I'm supported by Pathfinder Infinite and the Infinite Masters program, I can even label it and say, here's what it's called.
Yeah. That would be cool. Yeah, I definitely, and that's something that I think is really cool too, is the ability to reverse engineer some of the second edition stuff to first edition and vice versa, or
Hmm.
take stuff from first edition and make it to, you know, second edition. Because I know that was a big thing for like D&D 3.5, is to be able to transfer it to fifth edition or to fourth edition or to Pathfinder or to Pathfinder second edition.
So an interesting thing about that, actually, kind of starting with the 3.5, right? So 3.5 to fourth edition, anytime that you're moving up an edition, the thing, and especially as a third party developer, you have to be aware of is what happens when, I design a gunslinger for Pathfinder second edition when the core rulebook comes out, and then all of a sudden they release Guns and Gears, and now they've got a gunslinger, and you're like, okay, well, that's the first edition. Obviously, people are going to want that one. Do you go back and modify what you have to match it? Do you
Yeah.
just say it's a separate option?
Yeah.
And so it kind of gets it's a little muddied when it comes to designing up. Designing back is a lot easier because that stuff's not there and it hasn't been there. Um, so that makes it easier at least.
That's a great point.
Um, yeah. But that said, um, when Pathfinder Second Edition first came out, a number of designers, such as ourselves, for Samurai Sheepdog, were given early copies to be able to create third edition content to release within the first few weeks of the books coming out, actually at Gen Con.
Okay.
Um, and it was a lot of fun. I had a few months to work with it, and I did some writing. I ended up designing several classes. I designed a warlock, dragon speaker, the and two others off the top of my head, the Midnight Legate, and actually it's right here uh, on my background that I've got, called The Faithful Few,
Okay.
and it is a Pathfinder Second Edition book, one of the first to come out when the new edition came out. It features those four classes, and I originally was going to have a summoner and a witch, and I got a polite email from one of the designers at Paizo that was like, "Hey, I heard that you're going to do this, and I think it's a wonderful idea. That said, a couple of the first classes we're planning to release are going to be these.
Oh
So
man.
maybe." And I was like, okay, that's cool. Let me see what I could do. And it was the nicest thing, that they gave me that heads up so that I didn't, kill myself, shoot myself in the foot right off the bat.
Right.
Um, and so I redesigned them a little bit, changed them up. They became the Avatar class and the Warlock,
Okay.
um, for the Evoker, or
Yeah.
it was originally an Invoker, um, but I made those, and so that was a lot of fun. And I recently updated those classes to my better understanding of the content now that it's actually been released for a couple years, and I'm more well versed in it. Um, that's one thing. So, and I will plug this for a moment because I
Yeah.
am
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
proud of it. Is that uh, I I, as a designer, will always go back, even if something is an old content that I have released and somebody says, "Hey, I found a problem with this," or something doesn't seem right. I will
Yeah.
always go back and I will update it and say, "Okay, here's a better version of it, and this is why I changed it." Because I do, we're in a digital age. We're we're
Right.
we're well past the point where books are only in print. You know, I can go in right now and I can fix something in a class that's wrong.
Yeah.
And why not? I can just republish it to drive through. If you like the old version's still there for you to play,
Yeah.
you know? So that's what I do, and so that's what I did with that. Was I wrote the book initially based on the rules content that we had at the time, and then now a few years later they've released a few new options. I've become much more familiar with the system, and I updated it to make sure that those classes are balanced against the assumptions of the system.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And for those that are sitting here in the chat listening, we talked about balancing classes. If you guys go back and listen to the podcast episode where it's me and Kevin talking, Kevin goes in pretty good detail talking about how he balances classes and characters with this point system. So definitely go and check out that podcast episode and find out how he does it for sure. Have you changed
Yeah.
your system at all in balancing
I
things?
I update my system all the time with new understandings and relevancies, but it's never in such a way that it's never in such a way that it makes anything that I previously wrote any worse or better,
Yeah.
right? So it's always with that in mind. The point system has remained the same. That said, with the updates that are coming to Pathfinder that they just announced, the
Yeah.
remaster, that's going to be a bit of a curveball. So I'll have to
Right.
go back and kind of reevaluate numbers and just I doubt I trust the designers implicitly when it comes to that because I'll tell you in a second. But um, you know, I'm sure that whatever they're going to give us in the remaster is going to be equal to, if not slightly improved, versions of what we've seen now,
Yeah.
right? Like I haven't watched anything related to the remaster yet, but I know I heard that they said that rogues are probably going to get martial weapons.
Oh.
Um, and yeah, and wizards are going to get simple weapons. It looks like,
Okay.
which when you start looking at the nitty bits of the points system, right? So simple weapons are 3 points, martial weapons are 3 points. Okay, well, if all of a sudden I get 3 points, where am I pulling those 3 points from out of my 300 point system to be able to say this is why they
Right.
get it?
Right.
No, so there's going to be a little bit of fine tuning, but I don't think that we're going to see such massive changes that I would have to completely rewrite the way that I do it.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
And that said, uh, one of the cool things that I like was when I was originally coming up with the system for Pathfinder Second Edition, I actually ran it by one of the designers. I paid for a little bit of his time and said, okay, here's what I've got. Obviously, you have constraints because you work at Paizo. You can't tell me exactly how you design things, but if you just look at how I did this, can you tell me if I'm in the ballpark or
Right.
if I'm just way out, and thankfully he agreed. He looked it over and he was like, no, this looks pretty good, actually. I think that this works well enough that that you can use it to do your stuff. And I was like, awesome. I got a seal of approval. I was like, I'm running with this. And ever since then I've just made a few tweaks here and there and just made sure. And I use it. It's like my Bible, making sure that I've got my content balanced to the system that I created. And that saves me so much time. Then I can focus on things like playtesting, you know, actually writing the class or the game option, whatever it may be, you
Right.
know. It streamlines a lot of it for me and gives me the freedom to be able to put in the extra hours of playtesting that I have to put in order to, because anything you ever see me release, I have playtested endlessly.
Right.
So in all of my free time, I'm doing something related to that.
Well, if you ever need someone to play test first edition Pathfinder stuff, you just give me a call.
I may very well take you up on that.
For sure. Um, so it is SamuraiSheepdog.com
Yep.
is the one. And of course, patreon.com/name games. Names games with
Names
an S.
games.
Names games are the two main sites that people can go and check out. You can get in on the Patreon or check that out. Of course, Drive Through RPG, they can find you on there as well. If you're in our live stream here, you can just go down. Our Drive Through RPG link is there. You can just click on that and it'll bring you right to Drive Through RPG. Since Epic Realms is an affiliate of Drive Through RPG as well. So there we go.
Nice.
So yeah, Kevin, thank you so much for being here tonight and hanging out and just chatting and bullshitting with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course. If I could add one last
Yeah,
thing as a
add all
parting,
the things you want. All of the things.
Just as a parting thing, I wanted to mention. Hal brought it up in chat a little bit earlier. We are working on a project right now to help one of our fellow creators, Owen Casey Stevens. He's had some recent medical issues that he is trying to get through with his family and his life and everything. And so we are helping out in our way, in our own way, trying to help out by doing a project for fellow designers to pitch in and artists to help out and stuff. And it's called Like a Boss. And the idea is it is going to be a hopefully massive book of boss encounters for various levels that you can open up and see. Here's the strategy, and here's why this boss might be included in your game, and here's what you can do with it, and here's if you need to modify it. And it's going to be for, right now there's like 7 different editions of various rules, whether it
Okay.
be Pathfinder, D&D. We've got some people for like Castles and Crusades, and just a whole bunch of different systems that they're coming out with. But we're taking ideas from anybody, even new, existing creators, whatever you want to do. If you want to pitch into us, you'll find it on our website on samuraisheepdog.com. We have the press release there, and you can pitch in and just be like, hey, I have an idea for a boss encounter. And one of the first ones that we put up there as an example was one of our own. It is a massive psychic squid that hovers up above the ocean and like tries to sink a ship while it's a druid, and it uses like lightning storms and stuff, and its animal companion is actually a swarm of jellyfish that stay in the water, and when they sting you they try to mind control you.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, Owen's a great guy. We had Owen Casey Stevens on the podcast, and I actually this last week I posted a video where I took one of his Facebook posts and I put it in the video along with a little clip from one of the podcast episodes we had to try and raise awareness to get people to go and help him out, because I know he's trying to like put some of the stuff he's designed into bundles and stuff to try and raise
Yep.
funds for his treatment and his medical bills, because his medical bills are just insane. So I think that's awesome that you guys are doing that. I'm gonna go check that out, and I wish I could do more. I can throw words out there, but maybe I'll look at what you got, and maybe I'll see if I can even put something together and pass it on to you guys to throw in there. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are also like you said, we're taking ideas that people want to do. If maybe somebody doesn't feel confident that they want to design it themselves, I'm available to kind of work it out with them, and hopefully, depending on how many we get, we'll see and be like, oh yeah, here, I can put that together for you, and we'll get it out there.
I actually have an idea for something I wrote a while back for Pathfinder First Edition. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Nice. All
It's a
right.
gambling system. It's a gambling system. So
Okay.
it's a little something that's set in the River Kingdoms that I wrote that was a lot of people liked. So, and I never did anything with it. So, but we use it all the time. So I will
Right on.
send that. I'll send that to you. I'll send that to you. You feel free to use it if you want, if you can. I don't, or
Uh,
balance it, or do whatever
Absolutely.
you want. Whatever you want with it. Whatever you
All
want.
right. Sounds good.
Because
Maybe
I
we'll
really,
even.
again, yeah, Owen's a great person, and he's been such a great warrior for the tabletop RPG world that he's
Absolutely.
worked for damn near everybody, and done stuff for everybody, and he's just such a good human being too. So definitely, definitely support him and help him out. So
Mhm.
so again, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us tonight,
Oh, thank you for having
and
me. It's always a pleasher.
we'll come up with something else, do something else down the road. We'll always have you on if you ever need us for anything, if you ever want to do anything, if you want to put together a RPG for a stream and you want to just do something, you just let me know and we can host it here for you guys. You guys are more than
I
welcome to
will.
utilize the stream for whatever you need.
I will absolutely keep that in mind. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody that's watching, guys, stick around. We're gonna do a raid. We're gonna, if they let us, we'll see if they let us. We're gonna raid out to Gary Con because they are also streaming a little bit of D&D. So we'll see some streams. There we go. We're gonna raid out to Gary Con. So stick around, guys. Hang out and get your channel points. If you want, make yourselves known. Use my raid emotes. Use somebody else's raid emotes. Use whatever raid emotes you want. Just make yourselves known when we go on in for the raid over at Gary Con Live right here on Twitch. Again, check out Kevin Glusing over at SamuraiSheepdog.com or Patreon.com. Names Games, and we'll see you guys over there. Have a good night and take
Bye,
care.
all. Thank you.